All right, it looks like we're good to go here. So a couple of things when we get into the nesting side of part of the software. So the nesting is really about just nesting files inside of SOLIDWORks. So it really automates the process of putting an assembly together. So inside here, you can actually see, I put a picture of a bird in here. Of course, I had to use a hawk, right, because it's Hawk Ridge. But really, I've had a couple people ask me, where does the NestingWorks, where did you come up with that name, right? But if you actually think about it, nesting is actually like a bird, right? It puts a whole nest together, right? It puts these branches in, the leaves in, the twigs in, whatever it's doing, and it puts a real tight niche part together. I call it a part, right, because of the manufacturing side, for them to actually live in, lay eggs in, have, you know, birds in, whatever the case may be. So whenever you think about nesting, you can always think about, you know, what are the birds doing, and how do they actually nest? So, you know, us as humans, we always try to mimic what Mother Nature does. So we built a nester that is close, but, you know, it's not perfect because you can never do what nature does, right? But that's a lot where we get our ideas from. So inside here, you can actually see webinar information interface. So hopefully you guys can see all this, and then you are able to set that up appropriately. So a little bit about the nesting. There's a couple things, or three things you can actually do with it. People don't think about it as quoting, but really you could quote with the nesting software, right? So if you had a shop and you were actually going through and saying, you know what, the customer called up and they want 3 parts, they want 10 parts, they want 100 parts, you can actually use the sheet utilization to figure out about what it would cost you to do the material. So that's where that comes into play. You could use it for sheet metal. You could also use it for woodworking, right? As you kind of get into there, you do layouts, things like that. It follows grain direction. You can lay it out for different types of machines inside there. So those, to me, off the top of my head, are really the top 3 things for the nesting side. So some of you know we actually do CamWorks as well. So I turn all the CamWorks off in SOLIDWORks today because I want to focus on the nesting. Some people actually get that confused between the nesting and the CAM. Nesting doesn't do any CAM, right? It just automates an assembly so you can put it on a sheet and you can either export it to your own CAM package or you can use CamWorks to machine it. So that's where that comes into play. So I'm going to stay focused on nesting so you can actually really see the difference in a product of what it's actually doing. So nesting, you know, it's pretty easy to learn. It's one interface with a window. I'll get inside and show you that. You know, I talked a little about the bird, how it nests things together. You know, it's part inside of a part when you're doing nesting. True automatic, true shape nesting solutions. So what happens is it'll actually put the part the best it can inside of each other. So it's true shape. Some nesting products actually just put a square box around every part. So if you have an L bracket, it'll actually just put a square box around it and say, this is it. But our software will turn the L inside the L and interlock them inside of each other. That's what true shape actually means. Fast nesting, I'll show you the difference in this. It's just a real quick fast nest, or you can optimize the nesting and take a little bit longer. So if you had a part, you just want to do a quick quote out to a customer, go, okay, yep, I can get 10 parts on each sheet. The sheets are $100 a piece. I'm going to charge it for material, you know, and I can set that all information up. Right? So, or you can optimize that. Okay, I'm truly ready to, I got the job, and now I'm going to re-nest it and put it as tight as I possibly can. Full associativity with SOLIDWORks. I'll show this a little bit when it gets into there. Update the tracking, the flag whenever there's a change, made the component. So I got a part I'm going to actually show you with that. Automatically nest multiple parts based on material thickness. So if you had a part like a cabinet or a sheet metal part, maybe you got a piece of sheet metal is 50 thou, you got one that's 1/16, you got an 1/8 inch. It'll actually take it apart and build a configuration inside of SOLIDWORks to where it'll manage each of the sheet thicknesses inside the part. Material optimization, that's what we kind of talked about early on with the bird doing the nest and everything like that. And then improves utilization and increased productivity. So the idea is, can we stop wasting material? So we cut it. You may bid it differently. You may go to a customer and go, you know what, it's a flat sheet, great. I'm going to go ahead and, you know, charge them for a whole sheet even though I'm only using 3/4 of the sheet and not have to worry about the remnants being billed on a later job. So that is the option as well inside there. So with that, I'm going to show you a little bit about the nesting inside and kind of get going on that. So I have my SOLIDWORKS environment here. So if I go to Tools, I go to Add-ins, right? It's an add-in down here on the bottom. So NestingWorks 2017 SP1, right? I turn that on, I can run it. If I'm running SOLIDWORKS and I don't want the nesting on at the same time, I can turn it off. I can turn it on. I can check it off a server. I can put it back on a server. So you could share this across your company as well. Let's say you had, 20 designers, right? And 5 of them at one time would probably use nesting. So instead of buying 5 or 20 seats, you could just do 5 as well. And you guys all know how the server license works with SOLIDWORKS. Ours is the same way. So I'm going to hit OK right there. And then I'm going to open up a file. So the first thing I want to do is go in here and open up an actual housing assembly. So I'm going to open this part up. This is a sheet metal part. To go through and kind of give you an idea. This wraps around the housing with the fan. It's got the fan that bolts onto the back and pushes the air through the actual components. So as I get into here, you can see I have an assembly, the layout, the sketch, evaluate, and then I have a NestingWorks tab. So there's a couple ways to do this. I want to cover it individually. There's an Unfold version. So the Intelligent Unfold. So you can go through here, and what it'll do is it'll actually unfold in a part that's actually drawn with sheet metal. So there's 2 types, right? There's a SOLIDWORKS sheet metal part that comes into, you just open in SOLIDWORKS, and then SOLIDWORKS sheet metal will just unfold it automatically. But if you get an imported model that was drawn in a sheet metal package from somebody else, what happens is this 2 buttons right here will actually unfold your part for you as well. So in the background, what happens, it takes the imported models, it takes the SOLIDWORKS model, and then it analyzes it and says, okay, this is done with SOLIDWORKS. Let me use the SOLIDWORKS Unfold module, right? And then it says, oh, this is an imported model done in another package. So then it activates the NestingWorks Unfold module and unfolds the model as well. So either way, it's going to flatten the patterns. So real easy way to actually keep everything inside the same SOLIDWORKS environment, but you're using models from different packages, or a customer sends you a part, you open it up, whatever the case may be, so you can communicate with them. So I'm going to create a nest job here. I'm going to go through and actually set up, and it's going to go through. And it actually, if you notice in the background, it unfolded my part automatically for me. So this is a separate part, as you can see here. So when it unfolds this, now it knows what the flat pattern is actually going to be. So I can now go through and say, what kind of quantity am I looking for, right? It only knows that there's 1 in here. If I had an assembly that had another half on this side, another piece over here, or 5 of these, it would have put the quantity as being 5, 1, 3, 7, 8, 10, whatever the case may be, right? Because it analyzes the SOLIDWORKS environment inside of there. So if I want to change the quantity, I can just change the quantity right here. So I can say I want 5 of those. And go through and set that information up. My part thicknesses, I can go through here. It tells me what size the part is. If you look at it, it takes this, it puts a picture on here. I can take the next one, it puts the picture on here based off of this one. It also shows you where the bin lines are inside the actual part preview. So you have that. Is there a grain direction? You can control the grain by the X or the Y, right? It doesn't go 45 degrees, 32 degrees, anything like that. Sometimes in carbon fiber and things like that, you'll actually have to where you have a different type for stress and things. But this is really built off a wood grain or a sheet metal grain, or it's ran across a sanding type part to actually make the grain go a different direction. Things like that you can set up inside here. The part angle. So imagine this is 360 degrees, right? So if I put in 1 degree, it'll turn it 360 times on the screen to fit the best part file inside there. If I'm worried about grain direction, I can just set it at 90 because it's only going to have 4 options anyways, right? But if I'm not, and if I'm just doing a sheet metal part or something, I'm just going to cut a bunch of brackets out of it, I can put it at 1 degree and allow this thing to nest all crazy, and instead of getting maybe 30 parts on a sheet, I can get 50 parts out of a sheet because the grain doesn't matter, right? So you can control your time based off of this. You can still set it to 1. You can set the grain. It'll still do the grain the right way it's supposed to do it. You have part list angles. So it'll go through and say, okay, I'm allowing you to go to 45 degrees, 90 degrees, 75 degrees, 62 degrees, and you can put a list inside here. It'll go through and analyze that list and actually nest those parts the way they're supposed to go. So you have that as an option as well. It pulled the material automatically, right? I can also change it. So I can say, hey, you know what? That's great that you saw that, but that's not what it was. It was actually going to be a wood piece or a steel piece an aluminum piece. You can make this list longer. There's a folder in the background that allows you to do that. But what it does, it just reads the SOLIDWORKS information and it plugs it into this list. So if you tag it in SOLIDWORKS, it'll carry it over. So now I have that inside there. Sheet data. So this is where the sheets come into play on how many sheets I actually want to put on there. So it knows the thickness already is 0.75 millimeter, right? Because the part is 0.75 millimeter. So inside here, it automatically sets that. The quantity is how many sheets you want. So this is where some people get a little bit messed up. They'll just say, I only want one sheet. But yet they're trying to nest 100 parts, right? And only, 83 parts fit on one sheet, and it drops off the rest. So if you just say, hey, just give me 10, give me 100, whatever, it's not going to use all those sheets. It's just going to give you the ability for SOLIDWORKS and the nesting environment to go, hey, look, you really needed 4 sheets to get this job done because your customer needed this, or the department you're working with needed this. So I can do that. Once again, I can set grain direction, standard size sheets. I can go through and say, what size sheet would I like to use, right? A 4x8 sheet. If I have something that's a remnant, I can do a custom size and just throw numbers in it. I could draw a DXF file, and I can go through and open the DXF and use that as my sheet as well, so that I can go through and set that information. So I'm just going to use a 4x8 sheet on this part. I now have that set up inside there, and now I have to add it. So one thing I like to do is I pick the add button, but maybe I forgot. Maybe I got a file with 400 parts in it, right? So, and it's going to take me an hour to nest these 400 parts, or whatever the case may be. So I always hit the add button again in case I miss something. And now it says, hey, you don't need any more duplicate sheets. You can just use the 10 that you have. But if there was a part that was 0.70, 0.73, whatever it may be, the sheets would go over here, analyze that page, and pick that information up. So I'm just going to hit OK right there at that point. If I want to remove a sheet, I can do that as well. Multiple head options. So what happens inside here when you get a multiple head, it actually takes that information, and it shows you, let me pop that up inside here. So this is a multi-head option, right? So I just picked one off the internet to grab you like a torch table to show you. So what happens is there may be a certain layout, right? So when this torch actually cuts the part, and it could be a router or whatever the case may be, when this cuts it, you're going to get 4 more identical. CamWorks nesting can actually figure that information out. So inside here, when I get in the side, it actually lights the torch, and it lights this one automatically, right? And you can kind of set that information. So that's what the multi-head means. If you look at the actual back here, there's screws inside here, or handles, right? And I can adjust these. So maybe I'm going to take this one and turn it off, and I just slide it down to the very end, and I'm only going to use the 4 head. Or maybe I'm only going to use 3 heads on this one. Or maybe I'm only going to use 2 heads because I'm doing 2 identical parts. Those are the options inside the actual nester. So when I get back in the side here, I can actually show you how that actually works. So if I show this information, right, I can say I have a single head, or I have a machine with 1, and it has number of heads is 5, right? So when I nest it, it takes what I just showed you and says, okay, great. Is it a fixed head? Does it have a distance? Yes. The distance is what? It's 100 millimeters. It's 50 millimeters. Whatever it may be, you can set that up inside here. And what it'll do is it'll just nest the one part, because it knows the one part is going to make 5 duplicate parts. Otherwise, you're going to get 5 parts on the screen, because it's going to take one head and try to cut all 5. So that's where that comes into play. Options, I can go through the options. Part-to-part distance, whatever I want. If I want to run a cutter around, I can make it 12 millimeter. If I'm going to run a torch around it, I can set the torch, and this is the actual sheet distance around the outside. So if you have a machine that has fingers in the front, right, I may not call it a 4x8 sheet. I may just call it a, 6 inches shorter than 4 feet wide. So the fingers moving the part around will not actually interfere with things being cut. So that has nothing to do with this. This actually has with the sheet being around the outside of the part. So once I have that set up, right, then I can hit a quick preview. So I can preview my file and see what it's actually going to look like. So that's where this comes into play, and I have my preview set up. So it gives me my sheet. I said you wanted 5, it gave me 5, right? The rotation, it shows me one's at 90, one's at 180. It kind of showed information set up inside here. So if I have multiple layouts, I could say, okay, great, Mr. Customer, you want 4 of these, but I could get you more actually. And it's not going to cost you a lot more because the sheet is already kind of going to be right inside there, right? So I could say cancel. I can jump back over to multi-parts here. I can highlight these information inside this, and then I can just say, hey, you know what do I want the quantity to be? Maybe I can get 20 on that sheet. Preview nest, right? I pick on that, and now all of a sudden I'm going to have 20 parts being nested, or maybe 20 won't fit on one sheet. That's where I can actually use this for estimating things like that and different angles inside of there. So you can see how that kind of works getting set up inside. So I can set that up, need different sheets, things like that. Then at this point I could actually nest that file if I wanted to. Or I could say, great, you know what, that was not what I wanted, right? Sorry, Mr. Customer, I'm going to go through, I'm going to change this back down to something different, or a different department. Maybe they only want 1 or 2. I can bump that back down, maybe 10, whatever the case may be, and I can set that information up. Preview nest, and then actually re-preview the nest setting at that point. You can see my angle I have set to 1 degree, right? That's why you see my nesting setting up with different angles inside there. So that's where it's given me. I want to explain that to you, where you can actually set it and kind of go through there. But maybe that's not what I wanted, right? Maybe I actually really needed to hold to that 90 degrees. That's where I can set the 90 degrees up here. Take that, and now I have it set to 90 inside there. Preview nest. So real quickly, you can bounce back and forth. This is what I'm trying to explain as you guys go through this information. And then at this point, you can do a couple of things here. If this is good enough, right, and you like it, and you want to send it off to your other CAM package, or you need a DXF file to open up inside of your water jet, and you're going to apply the toolpath at this point in your water jet in a DXF file, I can just save the DXF file at this point, and I can be done, right? I close the files, I make a new one, I nest some new files, and I move on. If you want to see it within the context of the SOLIDWORKS, I just generate a nest of the file at this point. And it'll go through, it'll take those files, and it'll actually start building the assembly. So I can see the nest, I can see how much the position's in the part, but very quickly, and this is the great thing about nesting, if I really wanted to do this, you know, I had a shortcut there. I could create a DXF right away. If you're in SOLIDWORKS and you have a part open, right, you got to create a DXF for that part. You got to create a DXF for the next part, a DXF for the next part. And then you take all those parts into another nesting product that only does DXF, and you lay them all up, right? Inside here, I can real quickly create the nested file with all the parts. So if I had to do this first for my software that's external, I would have to come in here and make this, and made everything up inside here and start figuring out how I wanted to do that. So that's where nesting is a great product, because very quickly you can get stuff done. I mean, what is your time worth, right? If I can do something here in 30 seconds on a small part, maybe it takes me an hour with a large assembly. Maybe I can nest it and I go off and do something else. I go to lunch, I go home, whatever the case may be. Even if it takes an hour to run, it's running an hour on its own, and I can go off and do something else at that point. Or maybe if you manually nested 400 parts, it would take you, 30, 40, 50 hours to do that inside the SOLIDWORKS mating environment. So just different options for you inside there when you get into it. That is nesting. People will always ask me, great, now what about the cut sheet, right? Think SOLIDWORKS at this point. All I did was automated the nest. So now I can actually go through and I can actually save it. So if I pick Save As, right, I can save the assembly, whatever it's going to be inside there at that point. I go File, and I just create a drawing assembly, right? So it's still SOLIDWORKS. I haven't changed anything. I just pick up model right here or whatever it's going to be, a sheet. I hit OK, right? It brings it over here. I can grab the front. So this should be all familiar to you guys. This is SOLIDWORKS, right? This is not nesting. It's just SOLIDWORKS. At this point, I can close that, right? However I want to do that. And then I can build a bill of material. I can say Insert, a sheet, a table. I can do a bill of material, and I can start putting all my balloons on it, and I can just keep pressing forward. So nesting automates the assembly. Everything else is SOLIDWORKS. So I'm going to go ahead and close this. Go back to my other file, whatever the case may be. Let me go ahead and close out of here. I don't need to save that. I'm going to go ahead and close this file as well. And then I'll show you a different type of file. So this is basically a sheet metal part. Send it off to the machine, get it done, whatever the case may be. So if I close it out of here as well, now I'm going to open up something different. So I'm going to go through and actually do a nightstand for you, so a wood part. right? So I'm going to pick on this. I'm going to open up the Nightstand, and this is the Nightstand all modeled in SolidWorks. I'll get in a little bit more detail on this here in a minute, so we can kind of go through that information. So I have this, and this is something that I want to lay up on the sheet, right? So we can send it off to our router, the shop next door, whatever the case may be, or you're doing a bid for a customer, and you're saying, okay, if I have a 4x8 sheet, how many parts can I actually achieve out of that? So once again, I'm going to create a nest job, go through there, and it just calculates the parts, right? Whatever angle I want to be at, you know, I set this one up, it's 45 degrees, I can go through and change all that information. I can change it to 90, whatever I want to do, right? So I have that, part angle. How many parts? I just want to do one first, just to see what it looks like, right? Sheet information, I can go inside here. So let me go ahead and delete these to show you what it's actually doing. I'm just going to hit remove sheets here. So if I remember what I talked about before, I have a 12.7, a 19.05, you know, I have, 6.35 millimeter. So in the sheet data, when I say add sheets, when I keep pushing that, it keeps pushing the sheets that are needed to actually make all the parts. I hit OK at that point. Now I can actually go into options and say how far apart do I want to be. I want to be whatever, say 14 millimeters on this one, because maybe my end mill is a 12 millimeter end mill or a half-inch end mill. Around the outside of the edge, I only want to put, I don't know, let's go with 6 millimeter. You know, the wood's pretty straight. And then I just preview the nest. So it goes through, calculates it up. If I don't like this, remember I allowed it to go at 45 degrees. I can lock it back into 90, or I can lock it into actually the grain direction. But these aren't all my parts, right? It's got a few parts on here. I drop it down, I have other sheets. Here's another sheet. This is the 12.7 millimeter. Here's another sheet, 6.4, right? This is the back of the cabinet. Different size, because it's a very thin piece of wood that's going to go on the back to keep it from anything falling off the back of it. So if I take that, I hit cancel, I go, okay, well, great, but I kind of messed up here, right? I'm going to go back into my sheets. I'm going to pick a 4x8 sheet, because that's really what I buy. I missed that when I was doing it. And I also want to change the part quantity, right? So if I go up into here and I pick my part quantity, I can actually change the quantity to whatever I want, right? I just highlight the main one, and I can go, okay, I want 5 of those. If I want to change the step angle, let's say I want to change that to 90 like I did before, I can set that information up inside there. Just hold my shift key, make this, where am I at here, 90. Oh, I might have to bump that up. There we go. Now I have 90 degrees inside there, and then the quantity of whatever I want inside there as well. So you can see that set up. I can bump it, whatever I want to do, up and down, right? So I have full control. I hit preview nest, and now it's going to preview the nest based off my 90 degrees, and then based off my information inside there. You can see I got the 2 legs. One I got 5, one I got 4, because it didn't fit on the sheet, right? So I had to go to a second sheet at this point. If I pick on that, there's my second sheet. My leg, because I needed 5, put the extra one on the other sheet as well. So very quickly, I'm seeing what I'm getting inside there. If I like this, I just generate an assembly. So I can pick on that, it generates the assembly, it takes my whole pattern, and it lays it out inside the sheet, so I can actually now push it off to my machining package inside there. Or like I said, if you're just doing quoting, it does true shape, and you can kind of go from there. I can see the sheets again, but I already saw that. And then when I come over to the assembly, right, the configurations, I pick on it here, I can see that, I can see the configurations in there, I can see the configurations there, and it just kind of shows me the information, right? So now I'm looking at this going, wait a minute, I have no place to put my wires inside the part. So if I go back to my window, right, I go back to my nightstand, and I kind of look at this and go, okay, well, how am I going to get stuff up to the lamp? I don't really want the wires hanging off the back. I would really like to push it through, right? So I take this part, and I'm just going to open this part. Now when I modify this part, I'm going to take it, I'm going to go to my sketch tool, and I'm just going to take something, pull it right here off the center, because I really want everything set up in the middle. I can put that in, I can make it whatever size. You guys know SolidWorks. So I have that, and then I can go through my features, extrude cut, right? And then how deep do I want to go? I just want to go through all. I now have the hole set up in my part. When I go back to my assembly now reflects the hole that's done inside of it. As long as I don't change the outside perimeter on a size, it'll always update the model. right? So once again, I'm like, okay, great. You know, hopefully you don't make all these parts and you make them wrong at the other end and you finally catch it. But now I got the hole going inside, but I don't have the hole coming up on the top. So I can go through the nightstand and go, okay, great. But now I have this, right? So I have the wires going inside. I really want to put a lamp in top, and I'd like to put some electrical inside, but you know what? I need to get up the top as well. So I can open that part up. I can pick on it. I can go normal to, right? And then what do I want to do to it? I like to put one of those nice slots like I always see on desk, right? I just like the way they fit. They got a nice little ring that goes inside there. It's got a little slider. I can put all the information inside here, right? So I'm going to go to Sketch, open up the Sketch, and then I can go through and do a straight slot. So I'm going to pick it here, come across the part, whatever size I want to make it. Like you guys all know, I can dimension it to whatever I want. And I'm going to pick the center here, and I'm just going to mate it because I really want it right in the center. And I can pick that. As soon as I'm done with that, I just take that feature, once again, an extrude cut, and I go through and go through all, pick on it, now I have that. Now when I go back into my assembly, right, and I pick on my next layout, I now have the slots updated. So everything is married in together, right? SOLIDWORKS is that whole parent-child relationship. NestingWorks follows that parent-child relationship. So you're not doing more parts, doing more things. Maybe you have options for customers. Maybe for $100, they can just buy it without the slot and without the hole in the back. But for $25 more, we'll go ahead and bore the hole in the back, and we'll go ahead and cut this out as well. Well, you may not want to keep nesting every file over and over again. So like I said, as long as the outside stays the same, you do not have to re-nest it. If I change the outside, the NestingWorks will flag me and say, hey, the model's changed and it's not going to fit. You will have to re-nest this, and that's where you have to start re-nesting the actual files. So that gives you an idea in context where you can actually make changes and the nesting updates along with that. If I go into here, I'm going to go ahead and close out of these. I got a few of them. I don't want to save any of this. Close that one. I'll get rid of this one. Save changes, no. And then as I get into this, I'm going to show you the difference in doing an actual part inside a single part. So if I go File and I go New, so there's another option inside the nester to nest from a folder. So if I take the NestingWorks here and I want to create nest by a folder, so I have all my parts inside there. I'm going to go to my desktop here. I'm going to just pull the file out of there. So nesting presentation I put together, single part. I'm just going to grab the single part and I can select that part inside there. So now, if you notice, there's no part, right? So those are things that you have to watch for. So the idea here is where you can actually set information up. So this is what I like to show you guys. If I get into this file information, I do an open file here, and I get into the assembly, right? And I say all files down here at the very bottom, right? And I want to see all my files inside here. So I can back this up. I can go through whatever I want inside here. I can open the file up, and there's my part, right? Once again, I had it set to part only. So when I went into create a nest by folder, I couldn't see it, right? Because it wasn't actually activated on my screen down here when I left. So once again, there's things you just have to understand about nesting. Some people get nesting, they just love it to death, and some people are a little bit frustrated. And because it has to follow the SOLIDWORKS stuff, right? So that's where I can say, okay, great, you know, now I can open that, or I can nest it by a folder now, whatever the case may be, right? So now if I went and create nest by a folder and I picked inside there, it would now be in my folder, but you notice I don't have the option to change it back to see the parts as well, right? So those are things you have to look for, because now I'm going through my computer, not through SOLIDWORKS. And SOLIDWORKS' last thing was show me assemblies only. So now I have that, right? So single part, as soon as I create a nest job, I can unfold whatever I want, but if I create a nest job to begin with, it'll actually unfold it automatically. Sets my information up, sets my bin lines information up inside here, however many I want. You know, maybe I want 100 of these. I can go through and set 100 of there. It's 3 millimeter thick. Now, all of a sudden, do I care about the 90 or do I really care about the nest side of things? So I can set that information up. Let's just go with 50 since we're over the internet at this point. Have 90 degrees. Sheet data, I'm just going to add a sheet. I'm going to grab a 4x8. Maybe I want to do something smaller, doesn't matter. And then add that sheet inside there. preview, and now I'm going to preview it. So this is the part where you're getting a estimate for a customer. They're like, hey, if you bill me 50, what's the price going to be? Well, 50 are going to be $10 a piece. What if I buy 100, right? Depends on what you're doing with your material. Are you charging them for the whole sheet of material, and you don't really care what this gets used on later? Or are you really splitting this down the middle right here, and then you just have to charge them for this piece, right? Say, okay, well, the price break really isn't 50. We're going to add these other 10 or 12 up, whatever it may be, and then we're going to have a price break at that point. So your price break might be at every row, right? So however many is in a row, that might be your price break. So now the customer is going to pay for this extra row, even though because they're really paying for the material cost. So that's where you can play with this a little bit and then simulate it inside there. So that's a single part, quick estimate, checking things out. You can see it flattened it, got it all inside. It is true shape, right? It didn't make a square. This is what I talked about earlier. It didn't make a square piece out of this. It nested it inside of each other. So that's one thing to be cautious about with nesting software. You want to make sure it's true type, kind of interlock the stuff. Hit up with parts and parts. You can do a priority, say, hey, you know what, these are the parts, but I got 10 pieces on a priority. And then you can go through and set up the information and be able to run it that way. So that's one way to do it. So another thing when you get into nesting, the parts have to exist, right? It sounds weird that I say that, right? But I'm going to cancel out of here. The part will fold back up like it's supposed to because it makes a separate file really quick for me to be able to nest apart. So let me go ahead and close this and show you what I mean by it needs to exist. So if I go into Open, what then I'm going to pull off my presentation part here, I'm going to go to a mirrored assembly. So I'm going to open this assembly up. I want to show you what's going on inside of here. So this is where you have to remember nesting plugs into SOLIDWORks. All of us on this phone draw parts differently in SOLIDWORks, right? So the nests are inside here. This one would be pretty simple. If I hit nesting right now, it would nest all 3 parts. But if this was some crazy bracket, right, they use your rope with these complex stuff, you're milling it out, you're cutting this, cutting that, drilling holes inside of it, and all of a sudden you mirrored that, how would that be flattened to go to a pattern, right, to actually be laid back up? So you have to be a little bit cautious of this. So if I go to create a nest job, right, it'll go through and it'll actually choose, this one will grab me all 3, right? But sometimes in the nesting software, because people model within the assembly context, right, you just have to be cautious of what it's looking for in the future, right? So if I go File, Open, right, that file does not hold the mirrored component, right? So if I want to use nest by folder, in theory, I couldn't nest this assembly by a folder. I'd have to nest it by the job itself. So you got to remember, when you take a SOLIDWORKS assembly and you mirror a part inside the assembly environment, it doesn't make a part. It makes a mirrored component inside the assembly. So for this job, if I want to nest this, I have to open up the assembly, and then I can create a nest job from that assembly. If I say, you know what, 90% of the time I always create it by a nest folder, so when I pick on it, the component has to exist in the nested folder. So really that's the biggest thing you have to remember, you know, is do I have all my components, or do I have a created nest folder from here to be able to pull the components as well? So that's pretty much it for my presentation. I'm going to cover a couple more things here inside my PowerPoint, I believe. So the biggest thing, we have upcoming sessions as well. NestingWorks, right? So I have that. This is today. So this is what I actually covered inside here. So the biggest thing I wanted to make sure I covered, it says the newest 3D tool available directly in SOLIDWORks. Well, yes, as a Gold partner, things like that. But nesting has been around for about 5 years. It used to have a different name on it. It was called CAMWorks Nesting, which confused a lot of people because they thought our CAMWorks product did nesting and machining. Well, that's not the case. Nesting is a standalone product that anybody can use in the whole entire world that doesn't have to have any CAM package along with it, right? You might have a laser or a water jet or anything like that that just reads a DXF file. Like I explained before, create the nest, throw it out to the DXF, put it in your software, let it toolpath itself from that point. Open it in SOLIDWORks, create the nest, figure out what the job run's going to be, and then you can do a quote for a customer and never even have to put it on the machine. It just depends how you want to do it. So just remember, it's a new 3D tool, but really it's a new branded name to keep the confusion down. So it's a standalone product, embeds inside SOLIDWORks. It doesn't do any CAM. It just nests the folders as it goes out. Nests the files as it goes out, sorry. Sell your products faster, SOLIDWORks Composer, Visualize. That I believe is going to be next month, or next week, sorry, on the 29th. We have one come up in a couple days with the actual SOLIDWORks PDM and the PDM experience. So that's all I have for today. Here's my information down below. So if you want, you can actually reach us on support, anything like that. If you guys have any questions, you can type them into the window, and I'll do the best I can to actually answer those questions for you as well. So I'll hang on here for another 5 minutes quietly, or I'll hang on here for another hour if you guys have enough questions and you want more information. So we kind of go from there. So the question is, will nesting work well for multiple parts on my machine as well, on my mill? So the answer is yes, right? But you really have to think about how are you going to actually lay that out. So let me jump into here really quick and show you. I'll be on the fly showing you this stuff. So if I take this, and I have a part, for example, right? And you guys may have seen some of my presentations before with an actual part. But it depends how you want to do it, right? I'm just going to open up something I've done before. This one, for example. So this is quite a large part as you go inside there. But if I want to nest this to put a bunch in a sheet, right, like I showed you, then great, right? But if I'm just making a strip of parts inside an actual, let's say I have a piece of material that's going to be 6 inches by, you know, maybe 24 inches, and I got 2 or 3 vices up on there, and I'm going to put this in a strip, then to me, nesting really is built for that, right? Because if I'm going to insert something, I can just go through and actually make the feature, right? And I can change this, and I can actually copy this and make more features of that. I can do it in the assembly level, or whatever the case may be, because all you're looking at is making this strip longer, right? If you're taking a true piece of sheet metal or wood or anything like that, and you want to put a bunch of parts in it, and then you want to clamp it down or vacuum table it down, then of course you'd want to do nesting. It'd be much faster. So hopefully that actually answered your question. How do I hold the parts? Let me see if I can. How do I hold the parts during the cutout? I have a CNC router that uses a vacuum to hold sheets of different sizes. The parts are held by tabs as the final cut. Okay, perfect. We're talking about this earlier. So if you're using our CamWorks product, right, then you could tab it inside the actual environment. So you could do it either by a sketch, or you can do it by putting out of the design library, putting actual features in there and avoiding those. So it doesn't auto tab. Like if you said, okay, I want to go through an auto tab and just throw all my tabs on, like if you had a high-end like plasma type software, right? You remember this is still inside the SOLIDWORKS environment. So I can always draw little sketches as my tabs and say avoid those tabs. So that's not a problem. If you're exporting the DXF file to your own manufacturing software package, then you wouldn't tab it in our software. You would actually push it over there, and then you would tab it over there as well. So that's where that would kind of come into play. So hopefully that answered your question. If not, you can give me a call, and I can kind of go over that with you as well. All right. I'd like to thank you guys for attending, and hopefully I'll see you on the next one. Like I said, if you have any questions that come up later, just give us a call or shoot us an email, and I'll get those taken care of for you. Thanks.